Right, good morning people of the internet. It's quite an early dust morning, as you can see. The dawn chorus going in the background. But here is the Arctic Cat, and I'm still pretty impressed with it, to be honest, morning after. It looks like a serious machine. But today is the purpose of today, should I say, is to identify what is actually wrong with it. I didn't get too much into the mechanical depth of it yesterday. It was just going to be a bit of an introduction video. But as I say, it is supposed to have had oil in it when it came into the dealer. The dealer drained the oil out of it, so I can't ascertain that for myself. I've just got to trust them. But the oil that's sort of left on the dipstick and around it looks fairly clean. They said it was in the safe level and that there was no metallic components or shavings or anything like that in the oil that came out of it. So that's a good sign at least. We're quite low on water. This is a coolant little flap here. Come on, let's take this radiator cap off and you shall see. You see in there? There's very little water in there. In fact, I can't see anything, and it's really quite dry and powdery. So, what do I think is wrong with this engine? Well, the dealer says it's stuck. Now, it could just be a starter motor issue. They said they hadn't investigated it at all. Or a battery issue, but I mean, I would think any dealer worth his salt would try a battery on it. So what am I going to do to ascertain what's wrong with it? Well, I'm not going to touch the starter motor or the battery. I think it was that they'd have investigated it. So the first thing I'm going to do, I said yesterday that I couldn't turn the crank on this pulley here, so I'm going to take off all this belt cover, which will require taking off the footwell. So I can get to the nut on the primary CVT to try and turn it over. But before I do any of that, I'm going to locate the spark plug, which will be somewhere under these panels. I'm going to use some penetrating oil. I'm going to spray some penetrating oil in there, leave it for an hour or so, come back and put some actual motor oil in there. My choice normally would be the diesel or transmission fluid, automatic transmission fluid, but I haven't got any diesel in at the moment. Nor have I got transmission fluid because I haven't had an automatic transmission car for a little while now. So I'll locate that plug, stick some fluid in and start disassembling it. So I'll be back when I found the plug. Okay, so I've located our plug. The plug is situated just under here, as you can see. The actual plug hole is about there. This is the plug that came out. It's the correct NGK plug. It's nice and clean, as you can see. There's no fouling to it, but to be honest, you'd expect that with EFI. One of the major benefits of EFI is that in theory your mixture is always going to be correct. It looks a fairly old plug, but as I said, it doesn't look in too bad condition at all. I've put some of this maintenance spray WD-40 type oil down it, as I mentioned. I'll leave that in there about half an hour, and then I'll come back and put some actual motor oil in it. So now we're going to move on to taking the side cover off. Hopefully the rain will hold off as well. That's our side cover. So what have we got to do to remove this? These look like T30 Torx bolts all the way around that cover, so that's nice and simple. And more T30s with a captive nut on. They're normally a pain in the ass to remove. Looks like somebody's been here a bit before. There's one missing there and one missing there. That's not the best sign in the world. But yeah, I'll remove them. And we've got more down there, but it looks a bit more T30s. Probably the same on the back. Is this foot peg a part of it? Yes it is, but it's not bolted down like it is on the Yamaha. Okay, so I'll work out removing that footwell and the case, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so that panel's off. It was pretty easy to remove, as was the cover. I suppose it's the benefit of working on fairly new machines. All the bolts aren't seized. But somebody's definitely been in here before. As you can see, they've used a nut to loosen up the belt so they could try and turn it over. It looks nice and clean in here, but that's the least of our issues. As you can see, it rotates backwards, but of course it would do that because you've got a one-way bearing in there. But it does not rotate that way. Bear in mind we've not got a spark plug in. If I get the... Where's the breaker I've been using? Where's that gone? Here it is. Now I'm not going to go too hard on it. It's only had about, I don't know, 6-7 minutes soaking with WD, but we'll almost certainly need to rebuild the motor, even if we can free it off. If I get that on there like so, Come on. As you can see, look, I'm not going to put too much pressure on, but that does not want to spin at all. I've put more penetrating oil in there. I'll put some motor oil in there now. We'll leave it about an hour, 2 hours, and we'll come back to it. I'd like to be able to free it off, just so we can see what we're working with, because I don't really want to disassemble the engine and find out something is really broken in the bottom end, because in that case I won't bother repairing it. I'll resell it on an auction. But yeah, so not the best result, but a result that honestly I was expecting. So yeah, I'll come back in a couple of hours. It's just had a chance to soak, and we'll give another go at freeing it off. Okay, just a quick update. I'm not going to try and turn it over just yet, but I've just taken this side panel off, which I've taken immense care in doing, something I don't normally do because I don't want to scratch it at all. So if I do get it sorted, then it'll be literally new. I've put some, I didn't have any ATF as I described earlier, but I did manage to find some power steering fluid and conditioner, which is basically exactly the same stuff if you didn't already know. I also managed to spill it absolutely everywhere while I was actually trying to fill it into the cylinder. I did get it to turn just the ever so slight little bit before I put the ATF in. So I'm going to put a little bit more in. I'm going to basically put it into, it's almost coming out the top of the plug hole. Then I'm going to leave it for 2 hours. Because if there is a chance of freeing it off, I don't want to try too soon and break a ring or something. So I'm going to fill that up some more, wait a couple of hours, and I'll be back. Right, so I have some news. We've made some fair progress. I put some transmission oil in it, as you saw. Left it for a little bit. I've got the jumper pack on it now. And watch this. It turns over. But as you can hear, see that's once more. There's a curious sounding noise going on, and we've got no compression. So it could be all manner of things. I can't feel the piston going up and down at all. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed it's a timing chain issue. I'm thinking perhaps the timing chain, because I don't think the oil made any difference. I really had to wrench and wrench and wrench. I'm wondering if the timing chain has snapped and got stuck in the case somewhere, and me just really wrenching on it has just released the timing chain. But we'll see. So ultimately it's got to come apart. So I've got to download a service manual. This cover's already off, as you can see. Looks like I might be able to get away with leaving this front fender on. Perhaps not. But I've got to look up a manual, and then I'll be back once I've started disassembling it. Okay, so something of an update time. All the plastics are off, as you can see. This front fender, it was an absolute nightmare to remove. It was more like taking a car bumper off than taking a quad fender off. I'll say now, dismantling these are nothing like dismantling old 90s or early 2000s bikes. They're quite a bit more sophisticated. The engine itself isn't, but obviously you've got all the ECU controls, and the fender is a whole lot, a lot better. Well, better if you don't have to take them apart anyway. As you can see, I've got the rocker cover off. Unfortunately, we've already found some damage. As you can see, that is our lifter, or whatever you want to call it. That is knackered, mate. Look at that. That's got a lot of wear on it. I don't think that dealer's telling the truth about having oil changes, etc. That one's not as bad. Luckily, the surfaces that the cam runs in, as you can see, are absolutely fine. If we take a look at the cam itself, I can't really see too much so far, but it doesn't look terrible at all. So I don't know why those lifters are so bad or whatever. I mean, it probably will need replacing, but hopefully the head surface is absolutely fine. But to be honest, we've got bigger issues, because I haven't yet, well, we could have bigger issues, should I say, because I haven't ascertained if the piston is actually moving up and down. If we turn the cog, you can see the cam chain is moving, so we haven't got an issue with the cam chain as such. So now what I need to do is remove that cam and remove the head, and then we'll be able to actually see the piston. So I'll look in the manual how to properly remove that with the timing, etc. I'm pretty sure I know, but just better check, and then I'll be back. Right, the head's off, and boy do we have some information now. First of all, we've got a stuck valve, which is probably bent, and that valve also looks bent. And look at this. That, my friend, is a broken piston. And the worst part of it all is turning the crank, that piston is not moving. So I've just now got to keep my fingers crossed that the rod's in good condition and there's not 500 million pieces of piston in the engine. So now I've got to remove this barrel, and then we will really see if the rebuild is viable or not. So I'll see you in a second. Good news! Look at that! The rod is completely intact. And it's excellent. Look at this. No rod bearing plate whatsoever. All is well in the neighbourhood. Even the top is fine. Obviously I'll replace that pin, but there's literally no rod bearing plate at all. So we are mint. Crank moves as it should. Here's the piston that's left, or what's left of the piston. That's completely mullered. I'm going to tap that out and we'll see what we've got. I suspect it's been severely overheated, and then for whatever reason the piston's come loose from the I forgot the bloody name of it, from the pin, and smashed into these valves. So the question is, how do we get the remaining bits and pieces out of here? I'm definitely not splitting the case, absolutely no chance. There's not a lot in there. As you can see, there's hardly anything down in there. Well, there's pretty much nothing really. So look towards the back of the engine. You can see a little bit perhaps down there. No, there's nothing that I can see. But I'm going to get a massive magnet on a stick and really run it around in there. There's a couple of little tiny bits down there, look. Is there a bit in the middle there? Ah, that's going to be well lush. Look, they're all there. All the little bits are there. I mean, ideally you'd split the case, but I really don't want to. I think, to be honest, if we can piece it all back together, the piston that is, we should be fine. And then do about 600 million oil changes in it. But the crank is fine, as I say, so that's really good news. It's just a question of this bore now. Can this bore be salvaged? Obviously we're going to need to do a head rebuild on it. Come on. Come on. There's the cam chain guide. It's in good nick. Right, so I think now I'm going to tap this piston out and we'll see what we've got left. Right, so I've just noticed something not so clever. Look at that. That's a physical chunk taken out of the side of the barrel, and we've got some more here. Presumably where the piston has landed or broke. That's not so good at all, because you cannot get oversized pistons apparently. So I'm going to have to take this down to the local machine shop and see what they think. I suspect they'll say it's no good, because that is deep, that is. That is properly deep. But I've just had a call to say that all the parts of this rebuild, the 700 diesel, are in. This, we're having completely new parts, new crank, everything. So there'll be a video coming on that in a few days' time. But I think this is going to be the end of the video for this. We'll probably do yet another video tomorrow, cleaning out the sump and everything. And we'll have a bit of an update on how we're going to get all these parts. So yeah, please subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next one.